Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources Gwede Mantashe has been appointed acting president of South Africa from the 18th to the 22nd of May. Well, this is President Cyril Ramaphosa is on his way to the United States for a working visit, which begins later today. The president will meet with his US counterpart Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday to discuss bilateral, regional and global issues of interest. Ramaphosa is expected to press for the removal of trade tariffs on South African exports and to confront recent diplomatic tensions between the two countries. The visit will mark one of the most diplomatically sensitive trips of his presidency. Well, Pretoria is seeking to defend its international standing while protecting a crucial trade relationship. Well, for more on this now, that's joined now by SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Good afternoon, Sophie. What specific trade agreements will President Ramaphosa prioritize to counter US protectionist policies?
Well, I think the president is going to talk about resetting of the relations between the two countries. Those relations will include diplomatic relations in terms of foreign policy, but also trade and investment. You know that the issue here is the tariffs after the United States of America took a decision to impose tariffs not only on South Africa but on many other countries. We've seen many countries going to Washington engaging the US president about this move, and South Africa will be doing the same, but also on global matters, the war in Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East. As we know that President Donald Trump today in the morning, local time, is going to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin to try and push for ceasefire. South Africa has been working hard to try and persuade the two sides, Ukraine and the US, and Russia, to agree on a ceasefire. And I think there's common position also on the Middle East, where there might be a bit of challenge with South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice and the US not being happy after South Africa took Israel to the International Court of Justice. And of course, the national issues, the issue of Afrikaners. South Africa is going there not to go and explain. They've already engaged the US officials, but if a question does arise in terms of that issue, I think South Africa in a brief manner will be able to respond to that. But of course, the US administration has taken a position. There's no way they are going to change.
Now, how do you think Ramaphosa will address Trump's concerns about those 49 Afrikaner farmers' resettlement? I hear what you say, saying that it's not something that they would necessarily delve in too deep, but it's a big issue and it's certainly straining relations between South Africa and the United States.
The president has already engaged the president of the United States of America on this matter. We know that during that telephone call that President Ramaphosa engaged Trump on, they did discuss this issue. That request to speak to the South African president came from the White House, and they did touch on this issue. Of course, they will continue. We know South Africa's stance in relation to this. There's no genocide. There's no marginalization of a particular group. It's just the implementation of the redress policies. That's South Africa's position. The US is adamant that there's marginalization and persecution of the Afrikaners. America is not going to move, and therefore that's where they are not going to agree. And in any negotiations, engagements, you agree on some of the issues, you don't agree on some of the issues. This is not new. It happened during Mbeki and Bush. It did happen during the time of Nelson Mandela, and therefore countries do differ, countries do agree on some of the issues.
Moving on to the economic side of it, what steps do you think the delegation will take to secure South Africa's AGOA benefits?
It's going to be very difficult to convince the US to consider South Africa for AGOA during the renewal in September. I mean, not only South Africa and many other countries that were benefiting. There's no way I can't see AGOA being renewed. And therefore, here, that's where you reset the relations. You agree in terms of the trade relations, how you are going to manage trade relations.
Now, what assurances do you think President Cyril Ramaphosa will seek regarding the US investment in South Africa agriculture?
That's where the AGOA comes in. With the Minister of Agriculture, Steenhuisen, being there, he will explain in terms of a need for agricultural products to be exported to the US, and they can then discuss the issue of tariffs to ensure that both countries are happy. So definitely the Minister of Agriculture will have to talk about that. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Pakistan, will speak about big manufacturing such as the motor industry in terms of how you deal with tariffs there.
Thank you so much. Your valuable input there. As always, that is our senior SABC News International Editor, Sophie Mokoena, coming to us now on that US South African President's trip to the United States.